The United States of America is the world's oldest democracy. But is every American equally free to voice his or her opinion, ask questions, and dissent? In America, who decides which voice is relevant and whose differences will be termed insane? The recent events, such as the suspension of social media accounts and the political isolation of a democratically elected leader, makes one wonder if the United States of America is actually supported by the ideals of freedom and liberty. Or has it been reduced to a mere facade? Welcome to the Bottomline. I'm Nivedita Tiwari, and today we analyze the consequences of dissenting that have exposed deep-seated cracks in the red, the white, and the blue. With social media platforms and newsrooms now flooded with emotionally charged posts and reports of the protests at the Capitol Hill, it doesn't take much to realize the almost lopsided perspective that is continually being painted. What's worse is that even if there was another side to the story, it has now been systematically silenced. Let us look at some of the preceding events in a chronological order. In May, the death of George Floyd, an African-American man in police custody, sparked a mass movement across the USA with Black Lives Matter. The next few months saw numerous clashes, some of them violent, between the police forces and the BLM supporters who propagated the idea of an insensitive and heavy-handed administration. Just as the election frenzy replaced the headlines across the USA, a clear divide had already been made. On one side were those who agreed on freedom but supported basic safeguards. On the other were dissenters who argued for no restrictions altogether. Interestingly, this was around the time when big tech also started to pick sides and subtly begin to script popular opinions. As the USA went to polls with a pre-existing bias, each side was accusing the other of using all means necessary to fabricate popular opinions. The election results too became a contentious affair. President Trump voiced his concerns, claiming foul play and dubious conduct of the election process. The tables had now turned. President-elect Joe Biden had become part of the institution that many were dissenting against. But this time, things were much different. As opposed to freely expressing their opinions and protesting every administrative decision, there was a deafening silence. Be it social media, newsroom debates, or the intellectual political discourse, there was now selective dismissal and even disavowal of President Trump's claims. His concerns around the election process were called false, and his rallies were subjected to an unnecessary media boycott. A faction that claimed dissent against a desensitized outlook and totalitarian administration to its clarion call was now using precisely that to silence any opposing voices. Has there ever been a more dramatic switch? Joe Biden had advocated for the BLM movement. He had claimed that this was a time to heal America and to listen to each other. His running mate, the Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, had maintained that protecting democracy would need sacrifice. It would need struggle. Biden and Harris had made it a point to bring America out of helplessness. They had emerged, to the public at least, as good listeners. They won. And now don't you think they have changed? I'm sure you still have a faint recollection of the article that revealed Hunter Biden's emails. I'm sure you still faintly remember its claims of using government influence through his father. But what I'm also sure about is that it is a distant memory. And that is because big tech ordained it to be. This polarization has now reached such epic proportions that the political leaders are looking at the 25th Amendment for President Trump's ouster, consenting or otherwise. The 25th Amendment allows for the impeachment of a US president in the event of inability to serve or in the case of a disability so severe and profound that a president must be removed. When President Trump's supporters charged the US Capitol and threatened to disrupt the proceedings of the US Congress to certify election results, the event was immediately circulated as an attempted coup. Again, we are still talking about the world's oldest democracy. The march on the Capitol came after multiple social media accounts of conservative leaders and supporters were either suspended or permanently blocked over the last few months. And by the way, this cornering of President Trump had begun much before the elections with blocking of news articles and media boycotts. Adding further to his isolation, President Trump's social media accounts have now been permanently suspended. With 88 million followers on Twitter and 35 million on Facebook, the president, especially at a time when his political peers have begun to jump ship, would like to connect with those who support him. When, as a last resort, President Trump took to Parler, an alternative social network, his supporters too followed suit. But again, big tech and its biased support reared its head to block and suspend the app from both Google's Play and Apple's App Store. So much for free speech, so much for liberty and freedom. In all sensibilities, this step appears to be another gag order. Don't you think this is not far from totalitarian control? Do you think it is fair to disallow a free flow of ideas? If the freedom to oppose and hold differences in itself is selective, what meaning does a democratic process hold? Think about that. Until next time, keep watching NIJ for more insights. Dhanyavad and Namaste.